Hi, I'm Adam C and welcome to perhaps the greatest collection of prototype vehicles that were never intended to be seen by the public. This is not a museum, this is the collection centre of British-made cars, concept cars, cars that never were meant to see light of day, but here we are to give you a tour around some cars that you've probably never seen before. So we shall begin with the car that was right behind me. This is the original prototype for the MG Metro 6R4. However, this does not have the same V6 that the later cars did. This has a cut down version of the Rover V8 inside. So they got rid of two cylinders effectively from the Rover V8 to create this 250 brake horsepower V6 for the 6R4, but later ones had 400 horsepower. It also has not as much aerodynamics, like the spoiler is not fitted to this car. And obviously 6-cylinder, 4-wheel drive, is 6R4. That is the code name for the project, the Group B rally car, this being the first one ever. But as well as prototypes, there are full-blown concept cars here. This is the British Leyland ECV3, so a car made by Leyland themselves, not under any other blanket name. This is meant to be a very energy efficient car, a very low drag coefficient, and just a 1 litre 3-cylinder fuel injected engine. It can reach 115 miles an hour with over 100 miles per gallon. We've even got prototype minis on display. This is the 9X gearless prototype, so it's got no clutch, no gearbox. This is taken through a torque converter with just forward and reverse. 9X is one of its experimental engines. 50 horsepower has this car, finished in Mr. Bean green, and then next door to that we've got this convertible custom. So it's been lengthened by 30 centimetre. It's been stripped off its subframes and fitted to a ladder chassis and a longitudinally mounted Ford 1.6 4-cylinder engine. So the front wings and the bonnet have had to be extended to fit that, and its gearbox and rear axle. So the front suspension, that's from a Vauxhall Viva. The rear is from a Triumph Dolomite. We've got other components from like Peugeot, Nissan, and even these mini-light style wheels have been specially made to suit the Ford hubs. Then we go down to another Metro. This is a Metro notchback prototype. So inspired by the Vauxhall Nova Saloon and the Polo Classic or Volkswagen Derby of the day, this was their take on a Metro saloon. But financial constraints and the fact that the UK market didn't really like saloon cars at the time, they liked a hatchback, meant that this was only a one-off. Now, in a recent video at another museum, I showed you a Rover SD1 Estate, one of two. Well, this is the second one. I know a lot of you enjoyed seeing that car. This one has a slightly different rear end to the other prototype we saw earlier. So there you go, a better look at the rear of a prototype that was actually intended for production. And then behind we have this Tripex. It's basically an Austin Princess, but has been custom made by Tripex, which was a glass manufacturer, the 10-20 glass back, showing off their 10-20 ratio double glazing. So a one-off prototype concept vehicle based on an Austin Princess just to display this glass work, and there is a lot of glass there, very airy. You got the almost 80s design to the colours of it and on the wheels as well. And behind it you'll notice a familiar Range Rover, but actually there are only two body panels that are the same from this car over to the 2008 Range Rover, because this is the prototype for the two-door Range Rover SV. So it's got 4 seats, you've got 2 separate seats in the back there, and then just 2 doors there. Well, effectively 3 doors because it's got the similar boots, but despite its appearance, it doesn't carry a lot from the actual production Range Rover 4/5-door cars. Then we've got the only surviving Triumph SD2 prototype. This was meant to replace the Triumph Dolomite. There are a few Dolomites here as well. And then we come around to this rather peculiar looking front end. So this is the Austin 1300 SRV5. So in the early 1970s, British Leyland developed several safety research vehicles. There is another one just over there we'll have a look at in a little bit. And this is a pedestrian catcher to reduce the risk of injury to pedestrians. So it's got a revised lowered and softer bumper with the safety retaining bar there behind it. You can't really see it. And there's a bit of leather there to make it a bit more of a comfortable shunt. So the lower part hits the lower part of the leg here of the pedestrian, which then topples over the top of the car rather than into the car. Just behind the Princess, got another Mini variant, and Land Rover Defender, this was featured in Skyfall, so obviously it's got all the damage, but all of this damage has been done on purpose to match the damage of the cars in the film. They made about 20 of these, I think. So they've all actually hand sculpted this. This happens very often in the movies. They've had to make the damage so that continuity means that they can use any one car in any one scene without it looking different. And then here, as promised, is the MGB GT. So this is a 1972 model, so it's got the same rare fish mouth grille that mine does. This was only in circulation for about 1 or 2 years, but it was made before the rubber bumper MGs were produced, so it's almost like a hark into what they were going to produce afterwards. So again, this was for British Leyland at the Road Transport Safety Conference in Washington DC in '72, and it showed how safety requirements from the US, obviously rubber bumper, can be applied to cars from the UK. So we've got a sobriety testing computer inside. I don't know if that's actually still there or visible. And it's got a roof mounted panoramic rear mirror. So you can look from the mirror up and it shows a much better rear view. It's also got passive seatbelts, airbags and anti-locking brakes on an MGB. Now I don't know where the airbags could be again, but that is a bit more of a padded steering wheel than what you traditionally see. It's got hydraulic anti-roll suspension, power braking, and also had Dunlop's new run flat tyres fitted to it as well to add to it. So this was quite a legend in car safety. But welcome to another concept car. This is purely just a styling concept by Rover, their CCV from 1986. So it was based on the Rover 800, which wasn't actually out yet. So this was the kind of predating car to the Rover 800, but had a completely different style to it, just to show them what they could do. And that neighbours another Metro build. This is the AR6 Project 90 prototype. This was meant to be a suggestion for the replacement of the Austin Metro. This is a running example, this concept car. They couldn't afford the costs of development. 400 million was what it was going to be. It was inspired by Italian styling, apparently, of the era. I don't know, some of these edges are a bit questionable. It is missing a rear light. Oh, it's missing both rear lights. But in the end, they went for basically the same look. They just updated the Metro rather than going for an entirely new car just to save some money. So this could have been the upgrade from the Metro, because Metros were basically just minis, Austin Millis, just with different bodies on them. So they were a bit dated at the time, but they updated the underneaths instead of going through this whole new style. And for another Metro prototype, this one houses a 6-cylinder straight 6. The gearbox is mounted underneath it so that somehow it fits under the front end. But this is the first car that I've been so excited to see and to show you, because this once was a mint condition TVR wedge. Now I know it's got a very curvaceous look. This was a prototype for what could be the MGF, like the MGB's replacement. So it houses the 3.5 litre Rover V8 and then this curvaceous MG bodywork. And look, you can see these are the wheels that my 350i had. This is a 350i TVR, and you can see the dashboard is from a TVR wedge as well. Even that walnut dash, everything there is TVR wedge. The steering wheel is TVR, just without the TVR badge, but because this is a prototype, that's where they started. A good base, a good chassis. TVR made very good chassis for their cars, other than the fact that they rust away. And then they had this MG inspired bodywork just to see what the MGF could look like. Obviously this was never chosen to be the replacement. They chose not to have wing mirrors as well. Again, it's just a prototype, as is this, which looks a bit more like the shape and the size that you'd expect. MG were influenced by Toyota and their MR2 and created this mid-engined prototype for the MGF to compete with the MX-5. It was inspired by the MG EXE concept, which we saw in the British Motor Museum in a previous video of mine. And despite its pop-up headlights and wheels that are again similar to the TVR wedge, this is probably the closest to the MGF in appearance out of all of the prototypes that they made. But I personally just love this so much. It's fantastic. It is a shame they used a mint TVR wedge to do it. They could have used a bit of a dog, but this was, I mean, dashboard doesn't quite meet where the A-pillar finishes, but other than that, this is a fantastic look at how they worked back in the 80s. Now, a little bit later into the MGF's history, this was based on the MG TF as a prototype, a concept car for the MG GT. So it's got a bit more of a splitter molded into it, and then it has a hardtop, a coupe form for the MG-TF. So it's a composite roof panel that incorporates a second smaller side window there. And access to the mid-mounted engine has to be from the boot still, but it's a little bit more tricky with that full hardtop on it. And the doors are opened via button, again much like TVR. There, that's how you open the door for that streamlined look. It was also intended to originally have a V6 here, but they kept the MG-TF and MGF's 4-cylinder unit instead. Now we have featured a few Metros and we've spoken about the MGF. This is an MGF. This was the test car for the MGF disguised as a Metro. So obviously it's got a wider track to it, wide arches, but look, it's made to look like a delivery vehicle. And obviously when that's shut, it doesn't look too untoward, but it has the 4-cylinder mid-mounted Rover engine and MGF's underpinnings as well. So this is what they drove around in to test out the MGF, to not give away what they were doing when they were making it. I think this is a brilliant piece of history. So incredible to see that it's been preserved through the years, because you just kind of chuck that away. Normal manufacturers, they do this, they build it, and then they get rid of it. Now behind this Rolls-Royce Phantom, which has a bit of a sunk suspension there, we have a very special concept car. I love concepts. This is the Vauxhall VX Lightning. It was made as a centerpiece to Vauxhall's centenary, so 100 years of Vauxhall this was celebrating, and it's actually based on a Pontiac Solstice. It's got massive alloy wheels, 19s on the front, 20-inch on the back, angular design similar to the VX220. It's got the 2.2-litre Ecotec 4-cylinder engine up front with a supercharger with 240 brake horsepower, and elements of this car were used to build the Opel GT Roadster that was a later car. You can kind of recognize some of the stylings, but this is its own concept car. Look at the beauty of the wing mirrors and then the seats there. Interior is so simplistic, and around the rear you can see a bit more evidence of the Opel Speedster inspiration. And here is the royal family's Range Rover. Now this is painted in claret, which is a colour featured on all state vehicles. It's got the royal crest, hand painted. This has more recently been replaced by another vehicle, but you can see the rear end here. This is where they sit and stand to wave at the crowd. So the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and Prince Harry, during the Queen's 90th birthday parade in 2016, they used this vehicle. They've used it for other events as well. The tailgate here folds down to reveal a set of stairs so they can walk in and out. And to demonstrate how the colour remains this claret, I don't know if that's how it's like blood, the colour of blood, here is another, again with the royal platform in the back. There are quite a lot of Land Rovers here, probably because we are right next to Jaguar Land Rover. Here is the LCV2 lightweight prototype based on a Land Rover Defender, but with a V6, so it's got better performance, 0-60 in 8.8, but made of aluminium to save about 400 kilograms and provide about 40 mpg. And then doing a little walk around of even more of the Landies, we've got this Defender on tracks, like a 110. We've got the Land Rover Discoveries and even bare aluminium with a Defender 110 that's had its tyre cut out and the entire interior cut out. You can see the whole cross section of the car up to its 3.5-litre Rover V8 carburetted at the front of this Defender 110. Sectioned cars are quite a bit of a theme here. So we've got Austin Allegro that's been cut up. We've got the Austin Mini that's been cut up. Even an MGA that has been completely cut up, but not as much as an Austin A40. That's got no interior, no bodywork as well, nor does the MG next door. But as you head downstairs, you are greeted by a visual plethora of Jaguars history and heritage. I was going to say all of these cars here are Jaguars, but there's a few. There's Daimler Dart, but we will start with, well, we'll go to the Formula One car, because I remember this era, 2004, when I was a kid watching these cars race around, that classic HSBC livery. This car driven by Mark Webber, but you surely will have noticed the CX-75 with the Jaguar XJ220 prototype. So the prototype car was given vertical doors amongst so much more. So in this car we have the mid-mounted V12 that it was originally intended with. This was originally made as a Group C car, which is at home both on the road and on the racetrack. So they shared the chassis and the engine, and the car had the addition of a prototype four-wheel drive system as well. So a V12 with four-wheel drive was what this car was meant to have. But the XJ220 was never actually intended to reach production, but demand was so great that they went ahead with it. So with the help of TWR, they ended up with a TWR V6, and they still managed to claim the title of the fastest production car in the world at the time. We got your 5-speed dogleg manual gearbox as well. Very 90s, almost 80s inspired interior, because this was made in 1988, this concept. And then of course in 2012 they had the CX75, this hybrid supercar. This is the prototype CX03, number 3 of 5 that were built in September of 2025. This is won various different colours. It's carbon black underneath, but it's now in its James Bond orange. This is actually a wrap. And despite its appearance, it's only got a 1.6 litre petrol engine, but with its electric power it combines to reach 500 brake horsepower. However, unfortunately this car has now been decommissioned. They've removed all the batteries. It doesn't run anymore. It's just a sign of Jaguar's history that they are leaving behind, but fortunately providing on display for all to see in the collection centre with the XJ220 prototype and a beautiful XK120 as well. And whilst the CX75 was a baddie car in Bond, this was another Bond baddie car from Jaguar as well. So you had Aston Martin as the protagonist, and then Jaguar was the baddie. So this was in Die Another Day. This is one of 8 cars that were used in the film. I think it's the only one with the ammunition on the front there and the gun on the roof. It's a gorgeous green with gold flake in it. They say the paint alone is worth about £20,000. That's how much it would be to paint a car in a colour such as that. And this is actually road legal. It's an Icelandic number plate. This is a road legal car, a running version of the XKR made for James Bond. One of many E-Types featured in this collection is one of the later E-Types. This is the Series 3 V12. Now the E-Type was never that competitive in top events such as Le Mans against Ferrari, Ford and Porsche, but later on with the V12 they competed in Group 44. So the E-Type racing program concluded in 1975, which was when the E-Type production was concluded as well. But look how low you sit in here. But we are now approaching another favourite concept car. This is the Jaguar XK180. So it coincided with the 50th anniversary of the XK120. It's a fully operational vehicle based on a shortened Jaguar XKR chassis. So it's got the 4-litre V8 engine, about 450 horsepower, 5-speed automatic gearbox with gear changes on the steering wheel. So those buttons either side of the steering wheel, that's how you go up and down the gearbox. It's got an all aluminium body, and they actually made 2 of these. The other one is left-hand drive, based in the USA. This is a working concept car as a homage to the XK120, which is probably the most important Jaguar race car in their early history. This could have been made on the road, but never was intended as a production car. It was just a concept. I think it looks phenomenal. But welcome to the greatest lineup of the collection. If you're like me and you love concept cars, this is exactly where I've been wanting to take you to see. So we start off with this rather peculiar looking XK8 Coupe. So this is a camouflage prototype vehicle for the upcoming Jaguar XK8 in 1993. So they made 53 mechanical prototypes for this car, and this one was used to test the air conditioning system. So it's got a modified XJS underpinnings, so you can see very basic steely wheels here, but this is all about the shape of the car. They wanted to make sure that the shape was correct, and they took it to Canada for cold weather testing, and this is the condition that it came back in. So they've kept it in its as-found condition. A little bit ropey, rough around the corners, because it was just meant to test out the aircon and see how well the shape handles on the road. Look at that. Are they Escort rear lights? I think they just find any old parts bin rear lights. Look, that's how it was fitted to the car. It must have come off and they've just randomly put it back on like that. And it doesn't have this weird boxy outline here. It's fascinating seeing this. So it's basically just a Jaguar XJS, but with the XK8 body put on it. And I think a bit of the interior. And the next door might look a little bit familiar, visually similar to the Jaguar XK180 concept that we just had a look at. This is a Jaguar F-Type concept car from the year 2000. So for many years after the E-Type's demise, they were thinking of ways to bring back the name, or maybe go to F-Type for the next model, and this was the concept car. So Keith Hefflitz, who designed the XJ220 and the XK concept we just saw, designed this car. But this one is a little bit more compact than the XK120 and the XKR as well. Under the clamshelled bonnet, it was made to house the AJ-V6 engine that S-Types and X-Types used, and was made to either be four-wheel drive or just rear-wheel drive. And this car wasn't based on any other chassis. This was a built-from-the-ground-up concept car for what an F-Type could be, to follow the E-Type. So it's got the wing mirrors on the top. You can obviously tell it is just a concept car, but still a design language that they have created for the F-Type concept. So they cancelled it basically due to financial constraints and moving priorities. Ford owned Jaguar at the time, so they decided it wasn't really worth making an F-Type at that point. Obviously, we now know later on, eventually an F-Type was spawned. But interestingly, obviously, V6 can be all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. That's the same as the current F-Type as well. Obviously, they have 4-cylinder and 8-cylinder engines as well as the V6, but there are some similarities between this and what eventually was the Jaguar F-Type. So that's the second one in the lineup. We next come to the Jaguar R Coupe. So it was unveiled at the Frankfurt Motor Show, September of 2021, and they made it, well, they designed it in just 6 months. It's a full 4-seater coupe. So that rear end there is a hark back to the design of the E-Types. Obviously, they're clinging on to their most famous design that Enzo Ferrari deems the most beautiful car in the world. And you can see a little bit of later Jaguar XK design in that rear end. So it's got S-Type chassis parts, and this actually wasn't fitted with an engine. I think that looks very Ford at the rear. They might even be Ford rear lights or similar, because obviously Ford owns Jaguar at the time, but it was a design language that they carried forwards with later Jaguars, and it even had pivoting xenon headlights. You can kind of see the separate units, and then LEDs used for the fog lights and the brake lights as well. So a little bit futuristic. You can see pillarless design there and the 4-seater interior, and it has been positioned next to its sister from 2003, so a couple years after. This is the RD6 concept car. So following on from the R Coupe of 2001, that is this car, the same designer developed it even further, and they got rid of the twin headlight design. They kind of joined them together, almost a direction in the XF's design that would later come. And this is their first 2.7 litre V6 twin-turbo high-performance diesel engine in this car. That engine later on went into the S-Type, but this is a compact hatchback coupe, but still, much like the other car, has 4 seats. So you can see it's got coupe 4-seater and then hatchback coupe 4-seater 2 years later. Again, mimicking future design languages for Jaguar that we'll come on to in a little bit. Look at that RD6 with quad pipes. This is absolutely fantastic. There is the rear hatchback here. It is a beautiful sculpture. A bit quirky at the rear, I suppose, but amazing to see what could have been for Jaguar. But 2 years later, 2005, saw the third car in the Ian Callum design trilogy of future Jaguars, and this you might very much recognize as what became the Jaguar XK, the next one in the lineup from the XK8. So this is the ALC, which is Advanced Lightweight Coupe, and it was inspired by the E-Type. The front grille there, very much E-Type, and again that rear corner there is very E-Type. This was launched at the Detroit Motor Show in 2005, and then just a few months later at the Frankfurt Motor Show in September, they unveiled the XK. And they'd already kind of told people that a new XK was coming, and then they came out with the ALC Coupe. It was obvious that this is just a teaser for what the XK would look like. So a few differences, but a lot of similarities. I mean, the exhausts, they were canned, they were made either side there. The rear lights, similar, not quite the same in the production car. You've got that very long hatchback rather than the hatch on this one, so it's more of a coupe. Beautiful paintwork on this as well. Left-hand drive. So a fascinating trilogy in Ian Callum's design to create what became the new XK. Various different examples as to what to expect from Jaguar, and then ultimately the ALC coupe showing what was next. And next to that, we've got the CXF, standing for Concept XF. So this is his fourth concept car, very much similar to the production XF. We've got a lot of Jaguar design cues, like the recessed grille, much like the XJ6 from 1968. And we've still got that Jaguar rear end there that you see on a lot of the other ones. But being a four-door car, this was the most all-new car out of the collection. They'd once again already announced the XF, so people knew the XF was coming when this was created. So it was obvious this is what it was going to look like. Obviously the rear end is remarkably different here. The rear lights and those exhausts are quite beautiful. And then look, the door handles here hidden at the back, but also on the front doors as well. Look at that steering wheel there. Incredibly futuristic. I just love this visual appearance here. XF, XK, and then what could have been and ultimately what was not, but it has been housed here in the Jaguar collection with so many Jags, so many engines. Obviously they're legendary straight sixes, all in a line for all to see. You walk through, you see Mark II Jags, you see various other models from its history, the all-bare aluminium Jaguar XJ8, and even a Jaguar XJS police car. So this was used by the Metropolitan Police and the Warwickshire Constabulary, who used it to enforce M6 motorway speeds. So it was their demo car. It's got the 5.3 litre V12, 285 horsepower, and its top speed of 153. So rather apt for their speed awareness car. They built 3 development XJSs with 4-wheel drive. One had a V12, one had a non-turbo straight 6, and this one had a twin Garrett turbochargers with 400 brake horsepower, 150 miles an hour, and 0-60 in just over 5 seconds. And in the rest of the museum, I mean, I'm leaving my babies behind. I love those. We've got various vintage Jaguars on display. From the Jaguar 100s, 2.5 litre SS. They had to drop the name SS due to the war. You can hopefully tell why. These are all beauties in Daimler and Jaguar's history. And I sound like Squidward. So there we have it, the collection centre at the British Motor Museum. I love concept cars. So if you've got any ideas of more collections that I could visit for pre-production cars, I mean, there's a few in the workshop that I couldn't see, but I tried to do my research so I could give you as much information as possible because it's my passion. I love cars, I love concepts, and I love that. So that was Jaguar and British car design. So hopefully we'll see some fun stuff at Adam Seafest on the 3rd of May, but hope you enjoy that video. But for now, thanks for watching.